Alright, I'm Kyle Huckins, and this is Huckins on Film, and we're going to review Prometheus, which I saw last night. I can sum up this movie with one simple gesture. Oh, what a clusterfuck this movie is. I'm not even sure where to begin breaking down what a disaster this thing is. Seriously, it's been almost 24 hours, and I'm still struggling to find the words to describe just what I saw. Like, there's just no amount of profanity that can describe the level of pure dumb that exists in this film. Now, the worst part is, it's all the script. It's a well-directed film. Hell, I'm not gonna lie. The opening sequence is gorgeous. It's one of the most beautifully shot things I've ever seen. Like all things in this movie, it does end in a bit of what the fuck that's basically never explained or touched on again. I mean, honestly, yeah, it's one of those like, you're going to introduce the subplot and then drop it immediately. When you're taking your last cues from Tommy Wiseau, you have gone horribly, horribly wrong. But yes, as for the direction, it's wonderfully shot movie. It's gorgeous to look at. I saw it in IMAX 3D. First time I've seen a movie that was shot in 3D. It looked great. Now, I've seen a few 3D movies, but I think those were conversions and just, whatever. Didn't even notice it. I just paid more money to wear sunglasses inside because I'm a tool. This time, no. I noticed it. Unfortunately, when the film is 3D, but the script is maybe 2D, that's a big problem. Another highlight. Okay, sorry about that. Allergy season. Anyway. The actors, for the most part, they do a phenomenal job. Although, well, I should say, they do a phenomenal job given what they have to work with, which is just about nothing. The one guy who does grab the ball and run with it is Michael Fassbender as David. They make it pretty clear early on that he is an android. No, this isn't a big spoiler or anything. They make it clear early on. And he steals every scene he's in. Because he has this weird, aloof, childlike nature to him that reminds me a lot of Jeremy Irons' performance in Dead Ringers. He actually looks a lot like Irons in Dead Ringers, too. Fine by me. I love that movie. And Irons is fantastic, and Fassbender he's hypnotic in this. He also must have put in a lot of work with a movement coach, because the way he walks around in this movie, it's not cartoonishly strange, but it does look unnatural. You know, he looks like a simulation of a human, which is exactly what he's supposed to do. And he is fantastic in this. I mean, honestly, I can almost recommend seeing this movie just to watch the man work. He is that good. Idris Elba as the captain. And unfortunately, he's in this thing like 10 minutes. Which is a shame because he's definitely one of the better characters in this. He's one of the smarter characters in it. That's not saying a whole lot because everyone in this, or almost everyone in this, behaves in a way that's somewhere between irrational and flat out stupid. So when you see somebody actually behaving like a halfway intelligent human being in this, it really stands out. David is the same. Fassbender's David is the same way. You get what he's doing. He makes sense. You may disagree with him, but at least you get what he's doing. Those two and Charlize Theron are really the only characters who, okay, that makes sense. Charlize Theron plays Meredith Vickers, who's ostensibly the head of the Wayland Corporation because David Wayland is gone. Theron's great. In fact, I'm going to get into it a little bit after the spoilers, but there's one scene where Theron actually proves herself to be possibly the only intelligent character in it. And there is a scene where she does something, it's not pretty. It's actually kind of monstrous, but it's the intelligent thing to do, and she doesn't hesitate. The other main characters, Elizabeth Shaw and Charlie Holloway, married couple, they're archaeologists, they've really helped spur the whole thing along. They're ostensibly the main characters. Holloway's the dumbest sack of crap I think I've seen on film in some time. I mean, he's just aggravatingly stupid. Like, I don't know how I'm supposed to get through this movie without punching him in the throat. Ugh, he doesn't seem to behave like any kind of a scientist at all. Like, he just kind of seems like a stupid, drunken frat boy asshole who apparently has a degree in archaeology. But, I mean, it's one of those, I think he's supposed to be a devil-may-care type, and like, no, you're not. You're not free-spirited, you're a dumbass. A painfully stupid human being who deserves to meet a grisly end. And Noomi Rapace is Elizabeth Shaw. She's not as dumb as Holloway. Not by much, but she does a lot of things in this movie that, well, everyone does a lot of things in this movie that make no sense. I'm gonna get into that deeper. I'm gonna start now. Yeah, here be spoilers, so if you don't want to know anything, I suggest bail now, see it, come back to this. Oh, God, this movie is so stupid. There are plot holes you could drive LV-426 through. That's the only way I can describe it. Like, Shaw and Holloway find this cave, and it's got these cave paintings. And they found similar ones all over the world. Now, civilizations are completely unconnected by time and distance. There's no reason for this grand coincidence, but it happens. Furthermore, through the use of astrology, they find... I'm sorry, astronomy, not astrology. Bad Huckins. That's the kind of science they used in Prometheus. Anyway, they find a cluster of planets that resemble the one in all the cave paintings. And there's one moon on there capable of actually supporting life. LV-426. What a surprise. They never call it that in the movie, by the way. You're kind of left to figure that out on your own. Anyway, they get together this mission, and they head there. And there's a holographic presentation. Like, they assemble the crew, which is... I mean, half of them don't even have names, so, they're cannon fodder. Well, I mean, you know that pretty much everyone on here is cannon fodder. But Vickers gives the presentation, which then cuts over to a holographic David Wayland. Yeah, it's just the Wayland Corporation. There's no Yutani. Because, seriously, fuck that guy. And Wayland is Guy Pearce in old guy makeup. And I kid you not, he looks like Lo Pan from Big Trouble in Little China. The only difference is, it works in Big Trouble in Little China because that movie is so unbelievably goofy that you can go with it. Big Trouble in Little China is just... It's a silly, bizarre kung fu flick from John Carpenter, and it's a classic. But, yeah, seriously, watch that instead of Prometheus. You'll thank me. But yeah, I mean, Pierce does well, given that he's acting under enough makeup to stop small arms fire. As usual, as with every movie hologram ever, it looks like crap. It's fading out, it's fun, Seriously, why does anyone use hologram technology? It just doesn't look that good. Wouldn't you want a clear transmission instead of a busted-ass hologram? I'm just saying. That's another Prometheus has. It's a problem that most prequels have. The technology always looks to be better and more advanced than the movie it's supposed to predate in its own continuity. By light years. No one ever thinks about this for some reason. I don't know why, but that's just kind of how it always goes. And this movie's no exception in that department. It's an exception in a lot of other departments. Exceptionally stupid, but an exception nonetheless. And, okay. And Wayland says that Shaw and Holloway are in charge. Later on, the two of them are talking to Vickers in her life pod. Because, yeah, her quarters are their own escape pod if things go sideways. And it's a nice looking place. And then she informs them that she's in charge. A little bit after that, when they're going to land, it becomes clear that Idris Elba is the captain. So, you have 3 different parties who have been declared to be in charge at some point. This little power struggle, yeah. Don't concern yourself with it. It goes nowhere. Like, after Elba says he's the captain of the ship, it's just like a room subplot, it's just dropped. Seriously, I'm kind of convinced that Wiseau wrote this fucker. It's that bad at times. But, without Wiseau's goofy charisma, oh, hi, engineer, how are you? Tommy Wiseau's Prometheus. Oh shit, I gotta write that. That could be awesome. Sorry, deviating a bit. Anyway, after this little setup to a power struggle that goes nowhere, they land. And they truck out to these structures, and it's half the crew. It's Shaw, Holloway, David, two other guys named Fefeld, and what's the other one? Fefeld and Milburn. Sorry, I got an IMDb open because my memory is crap. And Fefeld has these orbs that he throws them up in the air, and they start mapping the insides of the laser, and they're just floating around like the Sentinels from Phantasm. Except Phantasm's actually an enjoyable movie. They start mapping everything. And, you know, they're going through these chambers, and they find one of the engineers. Oh, they set off a hologram. It shows a bunch of these engineers running from something. And they kind of follow the hologram to what happened. And they find an engineer. Well, they find most of an engineer anyway. He was decapitated. And David, who has spent the last 2 years trying to break down every Earth language down to its very roots, believes he can communicate with them if these things have truly created us, that our languages are descended from theirs. I'm a little skeptical about it, but I'll let it slide. He starts, like, the language looks like it's carved into the ship, kind of like ancient runes, although it doesn't appear to be runic. But these all have buttons, are apparently also buttons. He starts typing whatever, and the door opens, and there's an engineer's head, and inside there's this big stone head that looks like the cover of the last Dimmu Borgir record. It's, it's the one from all the promo posters. It looks fantastic. Can't lie there. It's a great looking head. And there's all these canisters all over the place. And David keeps playing with one. Even though it's bubbling up and weird stuff's coming out of it. One of those like, oh, alien species. Yeah, let me not touch that until I'm absolutely positive it won't kill me. Bit of stupidity, I forgot. They're in the cave. And their scanners are telling them that the atmosphere is breathable. This is where Holloway goes into dumbass overdrive. It's like, okay, just because the oxygen, nitrogen, CO2 ratios are fine, doesn't mean there isn't something in there that the computer can't recognize or detect that won't kill you instantly, that maybe didn't bug the engineers. So he just takes his helmet off like a dumbass. Yeah, there's absolutely no caution shown by this group at all. Before they leave for the caves, in fact, one of the guys, he's got a gun. He's ready to go in there in case things get a little hairy. And Shaw orders him not. I don't remember if he ended up not accompanying them or if they ended up not taking any weapons. It's not too fucking bright. Because what if there is something in there that just simply cannot wait to murder you? I think you've got to prepare for that possibility. But Shaw's not too smart. And this is before she goes should have been completely gooned on painkillers. That's coming up later. We'll get to that. Anyway, the two of them bag up the head of one of these engineers, while David tries to stick one of these canisters full of black ooze and whatever in there. They head back to the ship. Now earlier, Fifield and Milburn had decided to head back to the ship because they got spooked out. Because they saw what was going on and said, yeah, I'm not waiting for whatever's in here. One of the rare moments of intelligence in this movie. And then they find out there's a big storm coming, and everyone's got to get back to the ship or they're in trouble. Well, somehow, in spite of having like a 10-minute head start, Fifield and Milburn end up stuck in the caves because of the storm. They can't get back. Shaw, Holloway, and David do get back, although Shaw almost gets herself killed when she drops the head, and she races back out to try to get it in 200-mile-an-hour winds, with a lot of silica debris and whatever going on. Should have destroyed her. Holloway goes out after her, and of course, both of them should have been shredded by these winds. Just at that point, it doesn't matter what the size of any object is that hits you, it will rip you apart. Well, Holloway proves to be about as useful as he is intelligent. David goes out and saves their bacon. Manages to get them back in. And they've got the head. They figure out that the reason it looks so weirdly from Alien is it's not their head, it's a helmet. Well, David, the Swiss Army knife of knowledge about a race we've never even encountered, manages to pop the helmet off. And the level of medical knowledge these doctors possess, I guess, a little better than mine. Maybe? I majored in history at Rutgers, so internal medicine just not my thing. And they stick a needle, like, right about there-ish into it. And they just bring it up to 30 amps. Okay, nice things are supposed to be our genetic doppelgangers. I could be wrong on this. I'm pretty sure 1 ampere will kill someone. She's going up to 30. Then they crank it up a little more, and the head starts acting out more. Which is really stupid. You think somebody would know, oh, hey, all these jamming that much electricity into a muscular system. Yeah, it's going to trigger a shit ton of twitches. That's what electricity does. Muscles and nervous system run on electricity. When you introduce more current, things are going to go a little weird. Anyway, they get uncomfortable, they cut the power, but the thing still starts twitching, so they move it back into the quarantine cube, they close it, and the head explodes. Because I guess their brains are made of C4? That's my guess. If you have any theories, we have a comment section, hit me with them. And during this whole thing, Holloway's just like sitting on the one counter drinking because he's a drunken asshole. Seriously, he drinks a lot in this. And he's a dumbass. So afterwards, he goes and he's fucking around in a pool room. He's talking to Dave. And you know what? For an android who's essentially the antagonist and the villain, he's the only one you identify with. A, he's the only one with clear motivations. B, he gets shit on by everyone to the point where you really can't blame him for wanting to kill everyone. I mean, seriously, movie, when you make the villain the only sympathetic person in the movie, you have failed. You have failed on a level of failure if you have ever realized. Congratulations on that. You effed up that hard. Anyway, I'm sorry I keep going out of order. I'm a little scatterbrained. David's cracks open the canister, and there's something in there. It doesn't really look like any of the eggs from the Alien series. In fact, I'm convinced that for a prequel to the Alien series, I don't think the writers have ever seen Alien, which was an interesting creative decision. Not a good one, but interesting. And David's got this little spot of black goo on his finger from it, and he's carefully keeping it there. He pours out a whatever for Charlie, and then lightly touches his finger to the vodka. Instead of just, coming along with the vodka later. Maybe you pour, I guess it was vodka. Maybe you pour that out. You add a little drop of black goo, and then you come out with a tray of drinks. Say, would you like? Would you like one? Make sure he gets that one. No, you have to see him hand it to him like this, and then go lightly tap the drink. And after that little conversation, Shaw and Holloway go back to their room. They talk, and blah, 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 blah. Who gives a shit? You have nothing to say. And they boink. And he wakes up, and he looks in the mirror. His eyes are blood red. This little CGI thing pops out. His eye briefly goes back in, providing a cheap jump scare if you're a moron. And of course, his natural scientific reaction is, whatever. It's one of those 24-hour alien parasite viruses. I'll be right as rain in the morning. And they all suit up and go back to the caves. Oh, hang on, I missed a good chunk there. I can't remember. Fiffeld and Milburn are stuck in the cave overnight. There's one point where one of their little laser mapping buoys starts beeping because, hey, it found a life form. Elbow warns them about it. And they shit a brick because, alien life form, maybe hostile. We don't want to meet it. One of those rare moments of intelligence. And then, it stops. And Elba's like, must be a glitch. Sleep tight. Well, naturally, they decided to go. They said, well, it's one click west. We're going east. And they find the room full of all these vases and the giant head that David found. And there's just, fresh black goo all over them, just rivers of stuff. And for two guys who are scared shitless of this alien life form, they finally see one. It's like a little river of stuff. And a little white thing comes up. And it kind of looks like a face hugger. And Milburn, for some reason, loses his fear of aliens, decides it's cute, and tries to play with it. Well, it ends up wrapping itself around his arm, and breaking it, opening his suit, crawls in, and enters his mouth and asphyxiates him. I don't remember exactly what happened, but remember they also have acid for blood. A bunch of it ends up in Fefeld's helmet and basically welds his face mask to his face. You don't need to know this because, well, honestly, the screenwriters forgot about it too. So, they're all in the cave. They find... I think it was Milburn who... Yeah, they found Milburn's corpse. They don't find Fefeld. And then Holloway starts acting really sick. And they see what's wrong, and they bring him back. And they're at the door, and Charlize Theron greets them with a flamethrower. And she says there is no way in hell Holloway is coming back on. Last moment of intelligence in the whole movie. Because, oh, guy with possibly virulent alien infection on my ship. No, not gonna happen. They all protest, and Holloway starts walking towards her, and he's saying, do it. And to Vickers' credit, she does. She doesn't hesitate. She doesn't even feel bad about it. She's not the villain. She's not a nice person, though. But I'm cool with that. Anyway, he gets fried. And Shaw is inconsolable, but everyone who was in the away party is being examined. Because, well, hey, one of the party just died of something. Well, during the examination, David discovers that Shaw is pregnant. And this is where the movie, it's like a freight train just slamming into a dynamite factory at that point. It's just a disaster. She wants it out of her. Because she shouldn't be 3 months pregnant. There's actually a whole subplot when they're boinking that apparently she's sterile. They don't really they don't actually come out and say it, they just sorta infer it. And then 2 minutes later they end up screwing because she's really upset. And then he consoles her with his dick. I guess she's just a very resilient woman, I don't know. And so she runs to Charlize Theron's life pod. Sorry again. Early in it, she has a module in there, you lie in it, and it can perform any kind of surgery. Well, and when they mention this, like, okay, this is going to come up later. Obviously, this is Chekhov's surgical module. She runs back. She gets in it. The first thing it says is, this is only calibrated for males. It's on Charlize Theron's personal life pod. Why would she have a surgical module designed only for males? There's only one answer I have here, and I don't think that's it, because in a point that's glossed over because nobody cares, her and Idris Elba end up getting it on. In fact, they end up boinking, and whenever chemistry is inferred between the two, after that it's dropped. The only reason it's even the slightest bit relevant is because Elba's keeping an eye on the big computer map, because Fefeld and Milburn are in the cave, so he's keeping an eye on them. Well, when Charlize Theron asks you up for a booty call, you refusing? I'm sure not. So, of course, nobody's watching Milburn and Fefeld on there, and, that goes well. Well, you know, anyway, Shaw's at the surgical module. She manages to convince this thing somehow that there's something in her abdomen that needs to come out, even though she's a woman. Well, she gets in, and the module goes along. Apparently not. Apparently this thing can perform all kinds of complicated surgery, but it can't tell the difference between a man and a woman. Yeah. It's only going to get worse from here. So if you want to bail now, I understand. She gets in, and by this point, and remember, she's an archaeologist. She's not a medical professional. She's jammed like 3 hypos of something into her thigh. Well, the only anesthetic this thing gives her is a local on her abdomen. Cuts her open. Pulls out this alien thing. She, like, yanks out the umbilical cord. And it just closes her up, ignoring the fact that she's got severe abdominal... She must have severe internal bleeding at this point. She gets out, hits the decontamination on it. And for someone who just had a major invasive surgical procedure, she's walking around pretty good. Especially since she's just grabbing hypo after hypo of painkillers. Like, at this point, I'm amazed she has not seen the face of God because she's so high. Nope, perfectly coherent the whole time. I took Vicodin after having my wisdom teeth removed. I could barely say my own name. She shotguns enough painkillers to bring down a rhino, and whatever. She's good. She stumbles into a room, and what a surprise, Guy Pearce's David Lopan-Yutani. Wish I wouldn't keep calling him that. David Lopan Wayland is actually alive. He wants to meet his creators, to see if they will extend his life, because he's a few thousand years old, apparently. And it's really funny. Well, they have this whole conversation. Back at the cargo hold, there's a knock on the door, so to speak. They open it, and it's Fefeld, the dude who had his face melted off. Well, honestly, he looks fairly decent, although obviously he's infected. You know, he looks all infected, and he starts throwing people around like the Hulk. He kills a few people before being brutally shotgunned and flamethrowered to death, which is what you should do in that case. Anyway, that finally gets taken care of. Then there's a conversation between Vickers and Wayland. They're talking about the future of the company and who's going to own it. And the second you watch the scene, you know how this is going to end. She gives her a little speech and then ends it with, "Father." Yeah, they did a better job of connecting the series to The Empire Strikes Back than to Alien. I mean, I feel bad for the people sitting around me because I just let out the biggest groan on the planet when I heard that. It was either that or I just started yelling, "Fuck you," at the screen. Anyway, they all suit up. They're heading into the ship again. Because during David's last trip, he actually found one of the engineers on life support. Well, they managed to resurrect him. And Wayland's asking him questions about, "Can you save me?" And Shaw's trying to ask questions about, why did you create us? The engineer responds by grabbing David, twisting his head off. I mean, he's still alive. He's an android. That's one good thing about the Alien series is you can behead an android. It's an inconvenience at best. And the engineer also slaughters everything he can. Shaw manages to get away in spite of the fact that she keeps having to slow down because she had major abdominal trauma, and she's just trying to walk around because, well, what else would you do? She should be on the ship recuperating, but no, she goes with them because she's a dumbass. Well, they get off the ship, and the chair from Alien comes up. You remember the chair the engineer's lying up the blown out stomach? He gets in it. And he starts to fly. Shaw gets off the ship. Idris Elba is just like, I have to stop this. Well, they're not a military ship, so ramming speed is his only option. Tells Charlize Theron, if you want to get out of here, you got 40 seconds to get to a life pod. And she runs to a life pod instead of back to her quarters, which are their own separate shuttle. In fact, during the whole before the collision, her shuttle breaks off for no reason. She gets in the life pod. It blasts off. It goes like 10 feet. Not even. And then she apparently gets out at some point. You never see that. Because when the ship's crashing, it's barreling towards Shaw and Vickers. And it's like, you don't even know what the hell Vickers is doing there. Like, at least you know why Shaw was out of the ship. Well, the ship lands on Vickers. It also almost landed on Shaw. It's no joke. The ship kind of lands like this, and Shaw's lying here. Like the ship's like 3 inches from her face. That's not how physics work. Shaw should be a red smear. Finds out she's only got 2 minutes of oxygen left. Well, conveniently, Theron's shuttle is right there. So she runs there. She's fine. She goes near the door into the surgical pod, and of course a tentacle hits the window. You know, one of those great jump scares if you're a box turtle. If you have anything resembling a cortex, yeah, you knew it was coming. Well, there's some kind of bizarre axe. Like, the handle's really curvy for some reason. You're not even sure why it's there. But Shaw grabs it because she realizes that the engineer... Oh, that's right. David's severed head lets her know that there are other ships on this planet and that he can fly them. But for now, she has to get out of there because apparently the engineer survived. Well, it shows up on the shuttle too. Unharmed, of course. And 10-foot-tall, Kratos-looking Murpher versus tiny Swedish woman with abdominal trauma. It's you know, that's a close fight. Anyway, she opens the door, and big tentacle proto-chest hugger thing takes care of the engineer in a scene that looks like it was taken straight from a Japanese hentai. Seriously, this has more to do with the Ratsuki Doji than Alien. There's more tentacle porn than anything in this. She gets off, and she heads to the crashed ship to recover David's head and body so they can go on another ship and go in search of the engineers to figure out what's going on instead of getting back to Earth. The end. And then it cuts back to the life pod and the dead engineer starts convulsing. It opens up and an alien pops out. A really, really shitty looking CGI alien. That was another bad thing about this movie. The CGI is fucking awful. It's crap. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is a really bad movie. It's incredibly bad. I mean, it's almost worth it to watch Fassbender do his thing, but wow, this is absolutely fuck awful in ways I didn't know possible. So yeah, avoid this like the plague, because this thing is a fucking disaster. Anyway, this has been Huckins on Film. I'm Kyle Huckins, fucking off.